Another thing we do, I mean, when we do a spot check, we look for areas that we know are prone to have problems. For example, if somebody, let's say this ain't a hammer union, but this is a weld that somebody made, particularly in the field, we know a lot of times that time is money and we can't just send it to the shop and we just got to get it fixed out there. Well, the bad thing, if you do it right and you have an inspector out there, it's supposed to be UT'd or X-rayed and also magged or liquid penetrant. This is almost an impossible weld for a welder to make. I'll come back to this in a minute, but the problem you'll have when it comes to thickness when they do that, let's say the weld, this is a representation of the pipe cut in half. And let's say the weld was made right here, and that's your weld coming through. Now, what happens a lot of times is they'll have an excessive root, which means on the inside of this pipe, they just come down just a little bit more than where the pipe is. And circulation problems, I don't know. I mean, you'd have to ask an engineer this, why it happens, but I see it all the time. You'll find golf ball size wall loss around the back side and the front side of these welds. So if we see a field weld out there, we always investigate if that's what the client wants us to do, and we'll see what's going on there. And a lot of the times, you're going to find a huge wall loss out there. Other things we do, we know, we check the goosenecks really well because we know under the pressure it's coming to S pipe. We take our time going through thickness readings on our high pressure mud lines because we're trying to find the weakest point in your mud line to give you your overall pressure rating. If you're really going to make this repair, it needs to be done in the shop because if you're going to do it right and you're going to do it by code, it needs to be stress relieved after you weld it. Then it needs to be inspected pre-heat treat, then after the heat treat. And only about 10% of your welders out there in the field can make this weld. What's particularly hard about this weld is your root pass. I mean, your root pass, probably 90% of your failure is going to be in your root pass. This is working with engineering, and it's up to engineering, to come up with, but some of them let them run a different welding rod on your root pass. But this has got to be filled out with a particular weld metal that's suitable with the material that you're using. And you also need a preheat. And another problem with it, doing it in the field, especially if you're in Oklahoma or Wyoming where the wind don't ever stop, you're going to get porosity. You're going to get slag trapped in there. It's a very difficult process to do out in the field. I mean, if you got a Connex trailer and you could shield them off from the wind, put up tarps around them, it can be done out there. Find the best of the best welders that's got pipe experience out there and you're working with, he can get it done in 3 to 4 hours in the perfect conditions. But if you're working just with a rig welder that's most of his experience is structural and you're getting them to weld on a pipe, I've seen them take as long as 3 days just to make one of these welds. So it's really worth your time to actually take it apart and bring it to a shop to get repaired. Or I would even suggest is possibly have a backup plan. If you're a smaller company, have a contract with a pipe company in the area, and that way you can get something switched out pretty quick, and they can just fix it and have it on back order for you when something else comes a problem in the future. Or if you're divisionalized and you're a bigger company and you have yards in each division that you're in, just have an extra set of mud lines in the yard, and that way you could just swap it out. These mud lines, they got the pressure rating. Pressure is different; it varies. But some of these newer rigs are going up to 7,500 pounds of pressure, and you definitely don't want to make that out in the field. I wouldn't recommend. I do recommend that you get a good welder to do it, and you do have an inspector out there to check what you got. To check your weld, you want an inspector to come out here and do a topical weld. Basically, it's a surface weld. He's going to either do a liquid penetrant, which is going to show you any surface indications, or he's going to magnetize the metal, and he's going to look for flaws using magnetic particle. The second form of inspection you're going to want is an X-ray, so you can see the internal, what's going on inside of the weld. Or the other option is what we do is ultrasonics, and we'll see what's inside the weld. And again, this code is stringent, pretty strict because it is a high pressure mud line. It's if it blows out, it could kill somebody. I mean, it's very dangerous. So I don't allow anything I mean, when you're welding in structural, certain trap porosity or slag, you could allow a little bit and it'll still be acceptable or recordable. This is not going to allow you anything. Once you find pretty much anything in there on indications, it's got to be cut out. And again, it's a process. If you do it right, you've got to stress relieve it. And it's just better for a shop to go through that process. But again, we're here to help you any way we can. We'll find you a good shop. We'll help you find a good NDT company to do x-ray if you want an x-ray film copy of this just for your own protection.